the next song, it's called Road Trip to Truth. That's an interesting story. It was initially called Angst, and this was the title song. Initially, this was going to be the first song. It was very punchy, and this is the one I had had for a very long time. Yeah, this is the opener. So let's listen to it. Oh, from the beginning. Like, grab the attention right away. Days back in high school. So yeah, this is a song again that this is a very changed song. So it was initially about me kind of not liking the education system and as a whole, the American education system. And it was kind of whiny, and it was just like, oh, high school sucks. I don't like calculus. I got a 38 on my math quiz. And this girl I got a crush on started going out with someone. And whatever other high school nonsense. And so I was like, I think it's good. There's a through line of education there. So let's hold on to that specific part of me pointing out the things about the American education system that I think are flawed, and letting go of the whiny complaining part of it. So I called it, I made a last second decision to call it Road Trip to Truth, because I was kind of thinking about it, and I had written the lyrics to change, like I said, to focus on this through line, because part of this job that I was working on was I would work on this TV show, and it was kind of a road trip to truth in a certain way, and so part of the idea of that show is I would go on college campuses and I would interview students about the Bible and the gospel and Jesus. And a big common through line I noticed by doing, I probably did well over 50 interviews, is they're all college students, but they're trusting in their education, and they're not trusting in what they actually know. They're just repeating what they've been told, and they don't actually know it for themselves. They know what they believe, but they don't know why they believe it. And if you don't know why you believe it, then do you really know what you believe? So that was a very common thing I noticed while talking to these students. And it was a really cool show to work on, because I ended up, there's a line in here about, that's the chorus, don't want to fight about it, let's try and talk about it. It's a little bit, I kept some of the stuff from the high school version of this. But the initial chorus was, don't want to talk about it, don't want to fight about it, just wish it would all go away. This is me just like, oh, I don't want to deal with school. But I kept that line, don't want to fight about it, let's try and talk about it. Change that a little bit, just because that was my approach going on these campuses, was to, I don't want to tell anybody what to think. I don't want to shove religion down people's throats. I just want to talk to people. I don't want to argue with people. I don't want to pick a fight. I'm not there to, show this person that they're wrong. I'm just there to listen, and let's talk about what we believe, And that was my whole attitude going on campus, and I think that's why I had such good conversations, is I was there to listen and just ask good questions, more than anything. So that's the chorus. Don't want to fight about it. Let's try and talk about it. I wish that you could finally see you can't trust your education when it's indoctrination. I pray that you won't be deceived. That's a reference to, I think it's, is it Romans? Don't be deceived? I should know, since I'm writing a song about it. Don't be deceived. I think it's, James 1:16. Romans 16, 17 through 18. Yeah. So there's a lot of verses about don't be deceived. So that's my reference there. But as far as indoctrination goes, there's a fine line between education and indoctrination. And everybody, you have to learn. I think of education as it's you as a child catching up on the entire Earth's life and how it works before you were born. That's kind of what education should be. It's like teaching you how to live on the Earth that's been spinning for 6,000 years, or, we can talk about that if you don't believe it's 6,000 years old. But that kind of a concept of however long the Earth's been spinning, education is supposed to be catching you up on that. And yes, there's always going to be a filter and an angle that certain education will give you. No matter what it is, there's always going to be a bias. And I recognize that. But when it's very specific, trying to make sure that people believe a certain way and not presenting both sides of an issue in order to just, we don't talk about that. I think that's indoctrination. I think true education is, again, trying to catch people up on how the Earth works, but also presenting every perspective and then giving people the tools they need to decide for themselves what is actual truth. I think that's good education. Truth, and that's why it's called Road Trip to Truth, is truth is something that everybody has to know. And whether it's objective or not, well, it can't be objective, or it has to be objective, because if absolute truth doesn't exist, then that's an absolute statement. So how can you say absolute truth doesn't exist if there are no absolutes? That's just what it comes down to. At some point, an absolute truth has to exist. Now, obviously, there's bias and nuance, and we're not going to know everything as humans on this earth. But you have to at least know that absolute truth as a concept does exist, and there are such things as right and wrong. And when people get indoctrinated to think that right and wrong don't exist, that's when you know there's problems, and they're just running on what they've been told, and it's just indoctrination at that point. So, that's my distinction between education and indoctrination. The first verse is kind of me, again, keeping the through line of reflection on my past. Stuck in a daze back in high school, so afraid of being uncool, I never tried to stand for truth. It's kind of talking about me. I didn't want to stand up for what I believe because I didn't want to rock the boat and that kind of stuff. And all the things I'd say and do were just as fake as I was too. Chasing down the passions of my youth. That's another Bible verse. I believe it's Timothy? Passions of my youth. Let's see. I think it's 2 Timothy 2:22. Flee youthful lusts, follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace, and with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart. So that's that line. I was chasing down the passions of my youth. And we'll talk about that a little bit more with upcoming songs. But yeah, all the things I'd say and do were just as fake as I was too. I was trying to fit in, and it wasn't who I was. And I was repeating things I didn't believe, and I was saying things that I knew weren't true just because I didn't want to rock the boat. And that was wrong, and I shouldn't have been doing that. And then the pre-chorus here, I read all of the books on every single shelf, but none of them taught me to think for myself. That's kind of a metaphorical, abstract line. I'm going to check the camera here. That's kind of a metaphorical, abstract line, but it's good because you can study so much but if you don't know how to study, it's not going to matter. You know, you can read. It's like I said before. You can know what to believe, but if you don't know why you believe it, then it doesn't matter. So, another kind of angle I've thought about after writing this line was, I read all of the books on every single shelf, but none of them taught me anything for myself. It's kind of, I read every book, and I guess, yeah, maybe the Bible can sit on your shelf, but the Bible is also not just a book. The Bible is the living Word of God. So that's the only way you're going to get taught to think properly, is by reading the Bible, I think. And I've seen it in my life. It's reading the Bible consistently. It really is true because it's relevant to every aspect of your life. The more you read it, the more it's like, oh, this is this. It's living, it's active. It's not just words on a page. So that's kind of another way to think about that line, that pre-chorus. Then we go to the chorus. Don't want to fight about it. Let's try and talk about it. I wish that you could finally see. You can't trust your education when it's indoctrination. I pray that you won't be deceived. This second verse is a leftover of the high school version of this song. And if you go to college, instead of getting knowledge, you'll probably just end up with debt. Because that was another thing I would talk to students about on campus. And, they're like going way into debt. And what are they really learning? Like, yeah, you get a piece of paper that says, oh, you're good at this, and now you can give that into employers and you'll give you a job. But you're spending, at some point, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for this piece of paper. It's like, what are you really learning? So that's that line. And then, but Uncle Sam, won't you listen? I'm not a part of your system. I never needed your help anyway. It's kind of a reference to student loan bailout. But it's also just, I'm not going to be part of the American education system. I don't need the help that they're giving me. I don't need that line of thinking. We're trying to help you with your future. We're trying to help you, get a good job by getting this good education. I don't need that, So yeah, part of it too is I won't go to it too much, but I was very fortunate in my life to have not had to get any student debt when I went through college, just because God's blessed me. So that's kind of part of that line too, is I never needed your help anyway. But I think I wrote that line before I went to college. So I think what I said first about I don't need to be part of your education system is more of what I was thinking when I initially wrote the line. But it can also be interpreted, I don't need student loan assistance because I didn't have any. So then we go into, because we know that letter grades are all just a hoax to cover up the fact that public school is a joke. That line, my old drummer in Zinkernex, Dylan McSwain, told me that. He was like, yeah, I get A's, but like, public school's a joke, man. I remember him saying that. When I was probably like 16. So that's where that came from. And I thought hoax was a good way to think about, like, there's a lot of science hoaxes or whatever. And, maybe the education system is trying to make some hoaxes as well. But anyway, don't want to fight about it. Let's try and talk about it. I wish that you could finally see. Can't trust your education when it's indoctrination. I pray that you won't be deceived. Verse 3, we do this very cool guitar solo, which I'll play for you. You won't be deceived. No! The first true guitar solo on this album. We do this cool little, the acoustic guitars come in to keep the energy. And then we go with this cool little squealing guitar part. Guard your heart, 'cause And maybe I'll put that video of when it was called Angst, and I broke down each track individually. Maybe I'll put that back up, and you can watch me explain this a little bit more. But the drum fill was like totally stolen from Cult of Personality. But it was a really cool way to get us back into building up towards the final chorus. But I figured after this solo, take it down a little bit. This song doesn't really have a bridge, so this is kind of the bridge. Why are the blind leading the blind? Take good care to guard your mind. Blind leading the blind is kind of, I stole that line from Rise Against, I forget what it's called. Is it Voices Off Camera? Off of Revolutions Per Minute? Let me double check that. Yeah. I don't know. It's somewhere. I loved this album a lot when I was growing up. So it's somewhere in this song, I think. But there's a line about let the blind lead the blind, because it's an eye for an eye. Maybe it's not Voices Off Camera. I don't know. It's one of those songs on that album. But let the blind lead the blind is also a biblical phrase. Because it's the Pharisees, and I think I have that verse pulled up. I was trying to prepare for talking about these verses, but I didn't do as much as I should have done. Blind lead the blind. Yeah, Matthew 15:14. Yeah, so he's talking about the Pharisees. And again, I think this is a great way to talk about the education system, because the Pharisees were the religious teachers at the time. And Jesus said, well, okay, I'll read the full context. So he's talking about the new covenant under him versus the old covenant under the law, which the Pharisees were big fans of. And so Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen and understand, what goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them. Then the disciples came to him and asked, do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this? He replied, every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by the roots. Leave them, they are blind guides. If the blind lead the blind, both will fall into a pit. So I thought it was just a good way to talk about, even Jesus was talking about, if you don't know what you're talking about, if you don't know why you believe what you believe, then don't lead other people, So, kind of the same concept of what we've been talking about for this whole song. So why are the blind leading the blind? Take good care to guard your mind. But above all, guard your heart. And I think that's one let's see, guard your heart. Where's the Bible verse? Yeah, Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And this can be in relationships. This can be in a lot of things. So it's very important. Above all else, guard your heart. And then I threw in, I really like this last little line going into the final pre-chorus. Because from your heart, your mouth will speak. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And what you speak is what you'll reap. And what you reap, you just might sow. So, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And then one thing I had always said is, yeah, actions speak louder than words, but words oftentimes are what inform those actions. So it kind of starts like the process of things happening goes brain, thoughts, words and then actions. You know, it doesn't, people don't start, if we're going to go to the Holocaust argument, I guess, it doesn't start with, oh, let's go, you know, actually physically harm these people. It starts with an idea, and that starts in your heart and your disdain for a group of people. It starts there. And then you start saying those things of, oh, I don't like these people. You know, maybe we should do these things to these people. And then the last step of that process is the actions. So that's why from your heart, your mouth will speak. Your head and your heart, your mouth will speak. And what you speak is what you'll reap. So that's like, you know, your words are dictating your actions. And what you reap, you just might sow. And Salvador has a good song about this. Everything you do, it comes back to you. Their perspective is give your love away, it comes back to you. Everything you do comes back to you. But I don't believe in karma, but I do believe that God is a holy judge and righteous judge, and he will give everyone due judgment to what they have said and done in this life. And so if you reap discord, if you sow discord, you just might reap bad things. And there's a helicopter coming over my house, very close. I can't see them, but I can hear them. But you know, you gotta be careful what you sow, because it can very well come back to you. And I had to learn that the hard way sometimes for myself. Final part of the pre-chorus is, I can't just stand aside and let a lie bear fruit when I claim to know the man who really is the truth and the way and the life. And I did this little operatic part. That you can finally see, and that I claim to know the man who really is the truth and the life. Because initially I was going to have verse 2 be where verse 3 is, and it was going to be, when public school's a joke, and just really hold it out. But since I moved verse 3 to now what it is verse 2, and wrote a new verse 3, I was like, I got to fill up that gap. And so that's why I did the way, the truth, and the life part, because that's what Jesus is. He is the truth and the way and the life. He is ultimate truth is found in Jesus. I gotta kind of rush through it here, and then we have the final chorus. But I just can't stand aside. That's why I need to go on campus and do these things and do that. If I really believe the truth, and if I know what I believe, and I know I believe it, then I don't want people to be deceived. So I can't just stand aside and not say anything. Again, I don't want to fight about it. Let's just try and talk about it. You know, but that's why I really enjoyed doing that and going on campus, is because it's like, I can't let a lie bear fruit if I know the truth. You know what I mean? So it's complicated too, because your truth is a hot topic these days. But I believe in the truth. So trying to talk to people about the truth when they believe in that's just your truth is a delicate thing. But it's been really good to learn how to do that well. So that's the first 4 songs. I think we're at a good hour and a half in at this point. So this is going to be a pain in the butt to edit. But it's good. Maybe I just won't edit it at all. And it'll just be all of my rambling and all of my ums and uhs. And it'll be good. So anyway, I'm going to get lunch because I'm really hungry. I'm going to come back and keep going through the rest of it. So I'll see you then.